Good morning. I'm Atty. Trixie Cruz Angeles, former Press Secretary of the Marcos administration.
Gandang umaga. I'm former Secretary Relly Fajardo from President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo's administration.
And we are the
spokes.
From the palace halls then to our group chats now.
We'll be giving you perspectives from an insider's position standing behind the podium.
President Marcos met with diplomats from France and the Czech Republic seeking assistance to bring back Zaldico into the country. There's that name again. So, what do you think?
Siya na yung pinaka-popular ngayon in the country, no? Zaldico. Siguro, ang dami niya na ring fans.
Probably. Para siyang yung, ano yung game na yun? Where in the World is
Oh,
Carmen
yeah,
Miranda?
tama. Oo nga, no? You know, kasi in Europe, Tony Trixie, I'm sure most of our audience would know that it's not a political favor, diba? It's a legal process, yung repatriation. So I think yung question is not just simply why did the SEC authorities did not hold him, or Zaldico hold him when he was not actually arrested, diba? Parang he was caught parang randomly because he doesn't have the papers, parang gano'n, diba?
Para tayong kunwari nasa immigrations tayo and there's something with your documents, they'll take you aside to verify your documents. So, pero mali kasi yung pagka-announce, dinitain na siya, which means they found something and
illegal, supposedly.
Hindi ganun kadali i-check. Kumbaga, on the face of your documents, kulang. So, that would justify a detention, which is, you know, it's not, people you cannot be blamed for thinking that a detention would be equivalent to an arrest. There are very small differences, lalong-lalo na pag immigrations yung issue.
Oo. Kaya tama rin si Senator Lacson, 'di ba, na sinasabi niya na I think that's not really the issue is not with the SEC authorities, but in the Philippine government, did we move fast enough to trigger the legal mechanism for the SEC authorities to be able to hold him? No? Kasi nga, yun kasi it's not simply just, for them, repatriation is really, again, it's not a political favor. No? They have the different law. No? And at the same time, we don't have a treaty, extradition treaty also with the Czech Republic, di ba? So that makes it even harder for them to hold him.
Nangyari dito is that he was stopped for an issue on his documentation, tapos in-inform ang Philippine authorities. The DFA will be informed, so the consulate or the embassy will be informed. So something got lost in the translation. So it's also possible, na yun nga, it should have triggered something. The Philippine authorities could have requested for a longer holding period because he is a fugitive here.
Yeah. Or should they have, I think, they should have done that earlier, di ba?
Yeah.
Or, hindi lang siguro yung time na nakita si Zaldico during that immigration process, but katulad nun, yung kasing what you call that, it is not automatic warrant of arrest, yung Interpol red flag or something.
Actually,
walang
red notice.
Wala pang red notice.
Si
So the more
Zaldico,
so, hindi ba? Oo.
So exactly. So what the Philippine authorities could have done was to request using through the diplomatic channels a longer holding period so that makadating yung Philippine authorities and then make that arrest.
Yeah. And
try to bring him home.
Yun nga yung pinagtataka ko kasi we've been talking about Zaldico for the longest time and we know that he is the most wanted now in terms of because we wanted to hear what he has to say, hindi ba?
Exactly.
And the president himself even announced it. Pero nagtataka ako na really up to this time wala pa pala yung whatever legal document that you have, that I thought that much earlier they have already processed, diba, yung whatever legal mechanism that we have, no, in the European country, so that in times like this, then it wouldn't be as hard for the Philippine government to make them, to request for them to hold him, diba?
Well, the problem I think is that kahit dito, hindi yata maliwanag kung meron na siyang warrant of arrest. So that would be the trigger. Kasi fugitive na siya. I think isa yon. Hindi nagtumutuloy pa ang yung procedures. Also, since he's not here.
Oo nga, pero ang ano kasi dito, alam dapat ito ng mga legal team
Absolutely,
ng
yeah.
ating administration. And dapat medyo hindi masyadong na-excite ang ating presidente sa pag-announce, no, about Saldico kasi
Sayang,
it
crucial yan.
really didn't look good,
Yes,
not just with the Filipino people, but in the whole world. Because, I think the whole world is watching about this very controversial flood control, which is the biggest scandal, corruption scandal we have so
kaya
far.
nga nagkaka-controversy as to whether or not gusto nyo ba talagang hulihin yan?
Yeah, kaya nga nai-imagine ko ngayon yung reaction ni ni Attorney Roque na I told you so.
Di ba?
Kaya so well, I hope that there's maganda yung naging meeting ni presidente with our ambassadors of the SEC and the France, no. I think they also needed to meet with France embassy or France ambassador because they would need them in terms of yung Interpol probably
Nag-apply daw
or
siya ng
Europe,
asylum, allegedly, no? Because
Sa
that's
France.
what the news says, is that he allegedly has filed for asylum in France.
Yeah,
So that we can intervene or participate in the proceedings, in the asylum
yes.
proceedings.
I think they should have done that again. Well, they should have done it
Rocket
earlier.
science.
As again, if we're talking about how serious the government is in, getting Saldico to know the truth. Ano ba talaga yung mga sinasabi ni Saldico, di ba? No, I can't wait. No, ano ba ang naman niya, napakadulas naman ni Saldi. Ang hirap niya talagang mahuli. But anyways, another noted by the spokes,
Yan, ito maganda to.
forthwith in impeachment proceedings was clarified by the Supreme Court by done within reasonable time and not immediate. So, alam mo, masyadong controversial. Itong forthwith na to, nakadikit na to sa pangalan ni Senator Cheese. Medyo matagal-tagal bago mawala yun, yung forthwith na word na yan with Senator Cheese Escudero.
So, full disclosure, prof ko si Cheese Escudero in the College of Law ng fourth year ako. I got a good grade.
Oh, okay.
Just in case you're wondering. Now, this petition was filed by a Mr. Attorney Catalino Generillo Jr. And the request was, the petition was mandamus, meaning to compel. They were asking the Supreme Court to issue an order to compel the Senate to act on the impeachment, to convene the impeachment court. Di ba, maraming cases dito na final in the 19th Congress on Vice President Sara's impeachment. So this was one of them. So what the Supreme Court did was they issued a decision to define what forthwith means. Well, not exactly that. What they're saying is that the Senate has the discretion when to convene it as long as it is within a reasonable time. And it is the Senate that will determine kung ano ang reasonable. So,
so there's really no fixed deadline for the Senate to start the impeachment trial because they have to determine when is that reasonable time.
Lalong-lalo na in the absence of grave abuse of discretion, walang finding kasi sabi ng Korte Suprema, there is no finding of grave abuse of discretion dito. Kung kaya't hindi nila pwedeng issuean ng order or it would not be in the interests of the public or in the interests of justice na mag-issue sila ng order telling the Senate to convene kasi it is really the Senate that will determine. Wala naman sinasabing grave abuse of discretion. So,
Pero he was already criticized.
Ay, oo.
Diba? Even before the Supreme Court ruling defined really the word forthwith, no? It's water under the bridge for Senator Cheese Escudero, no? It will be forever in his be connected with him. And now it will be up to SP. No, to the Senate President Tito Soto on how to handle likely the impeachment trial in the Senate, di ba?
There might be some trepidation, medyo parang konting nervyos sa ibang mga tao, particularly those who are in law, in the administrations of justice. Kasi si Senator Cheese, makakampante ka pag siya yung nag-handle ng Senate impeachment trial kasi abogado siya. But in the case of Senator Soto, not quite. So, it will bear looking into how he's going to handle this or even things like how to handle what the reasonable time.
But I hope it will help the SPs, si Tito Sen, no, already with this guidance by the Supreme Court, no,
Correct.
in the definition of the forthwith word. But at the same time, well, parang kasi lately makikita mo yung mga what you call this statements ni SP. Love ko yan si Tito Sen pero parang medyo biased yung yung mga
Ganun ba?
ibang statements niya. I hope not, no, kasi they will be the judge, so I hope that they will be very objective and fair when when the impeachment is already at the Senate.
Yan. But also, the Supreme Court, we have to take note also na sinabi ng Korte Suprema, this is not a means by any interpretation. Hindi natin pwedeng sabihin na ito ay isang paraan para ma-evade ang accountability. Delay lang ang pinag-uusapan dito. Hindi pwedeng gamitin ito ng Senado para ma-avoid yung accountability.
Okay, so these are the headlines noted by the spokes today. We'll have Attorney Michael Powa, the spokesperson for the defense on the impeachment of Vice President Sara Duterte, when the spokes return after this short break.
And we're back. Yesterday, the House Committee on Justice voted 53-0, shocker, a unanimous move on finding probable cause on the impeachment complaints against VP Sara Duterte.
Joining today's discussion is the spokesperson for the defense team of Vice President Sara Duterte, Attorney Michael Powa. Welcome back to the spokes, Attorney.
Really, good morning.
Good morning.
Attorney Trixie, good morning. Thank you for having us again.
Yeah. We're glad you're here.
53-0. Expected.
That was the number. And to be honest, we issued a statement yesterday. Sinabi naman namin it was not unexpected, meaning hindi na natin kinagulat, no? Especially with the way the proceedings were going. Medyo it's really not a shock to us. Although, syempre, medyo maingat din kami sa mga sinasabi namin, mga pahayag namin, because as you know, we've already filed a petition for certiorari before the Supreme Court, specifically assailing the manner in which these proceedings are being conducted at the moment.
On the sufficiency of substance of the impeachment complaint, the vote was 54-1.
Yes, yes.
So what do you think happened with the two votes? Because now it's just 53-0.
Well, I don't want to speculate, but I think meron din kasing mga mambabatas na that were not present yesterday. So, but again, I don't want to speculate.
Okay.
It is what it is.
So they're not just there physically.
May napansin ako ng mga wala kasi.
Kaya hindi sila nakaboto.
But even then, I don't even want to speculate on their vote kasi hindi din natin masabi. Baka pag kahit nandun sila, affirmative rin naman yung vote. So, I don't really
matter
want to
actually,
say
no?
that's
Kasi it's still the majority, Attorney.
Well, sa akin kasi, with the composition of the committee, plus yung mga statements naman na naririnig natin. And we have to admit, this is both a political and legal proceeding.
More political, in fact. Alam naman na impeachment.
But again, I don't want to be unfair din sa mga lawmakers natin who voted affirmative. We'd like to, I always gave them the benefit of the doubt, hindi ba? So baka naman talaga sa paniniwala nila, may probable cause. So I don't want to cast aspersions. But again, we are questioning kasi the proceedings mismo.
Yes.
For example, maraming mga lumalabas na mga ebidensya after nakapag-file na kami ng aming answer, di ba? So may
Even
mga ganyan kaming questions.
The manner, for example, meron, of course, clarificatory lang yung questions. But at the end of the clarificatory question, each congressman, I noticed this, would make a manifestation.
Yes.
Tapos yung manifestation, minsan, nag-introduce sila ng evidence that was not even in the clarificatory nor in the documents.
Yes.
Lalong-lalo na the last hearing, last time, with regard to the NBI
Exactly.
report.
And I think it went yesterday, at least yung pananaw lang namin to, again with due respect to the committee members and of course the leadership. Pananaw lang namin. Yesterday kasi meron ng mga videos pati ni Mayor Baste, no? Which in our opinion are not relevant to the proceedings. So it makes us question, no, kung bakit ganun yung pinatunguhan. But again, Sa atin naman, we have our own position, they have their own position. That's the beauty of a democracy, and we have already raised the petition before the Supreme Court. So sa atin, we'll just see if it
That's,
will be acted upon.
It can also be a platform kasi na the more that they delay it, the more that they discuss it in the committee, it could have really an effect on the character of the Vice President. No? Medyo hindi lang, as you said, no, it's the proceeding that you're questioning, not the probable cause already, di ba? Kasi nga, it's being used, the platform is already being used to assassinate the character of the Vice
really
President. Sorry for the word, but to lack of better word to say it.
I don't want to be accusatory, but of
Yeah.
course, that is always a fear of the defense. And then, syempre, ang sasabihin naman, ang ibabato naman sa atin na hindi naman kasi sumisipot
Yeah,
ang
tama.
Vice President or ang defense team. Sa defense team naman kasi, ang pagkakaintindi namin is if the principal or the client is not there, then wala naman kaming gagawin doon but
Yes,
to assist, hindi ba the client. And so, if the client is not there, then what's our participation?
Correct.
Secondly, with our client naman, I think we made it clear that with the petition that we filed with the Supreme Court, we have to remain consistent, no? And even speaking practically, for example, parating tinatanong kasi na is the respondent present, no, to maybe refute, rebut, or present controverting evidence doon sa present nila. But those pieces of evidence, allegedly pieces of evidence and testimonies that were given, hindi naman kami nabigyan ng advance copy ng mga dokumento niyan. So, practically speaking, how is the Vice President or the defense even expected to
Answer, no?
to answer right then and there intelligently, hindi ba, kung hindi pa namin na-examine ang mga dokumento. So these are, nuances that that's why we believe that there was really no advantage in us
To appear.
attending or appearing these proceedings.
Is it also an issue with the defense that Congresswoman Laila De Lima, who endorsed the impeachment complaint, is also allowed to ask clarificatory questions and then also make manifestations and cast her vote?
It was a thought that entered the defense mind, obviously. Kasi syempre may bias pag
Yes.
ganon, pag endorser ka rin. But however, I think even during the president, when the president's impeachment complaints were being tackled, na-raise na rin yata yan.
Okay,
And if I remember correctly, they said that for as long as they're members of the committee, they can ask. And so we did not see the point na rin of raising that issue. And of course, this is with all due respect to Representative De Lima,
Yes.
who I have the utmost respect for also.
In fact, even if you're not a member, you can also ask questions and make statement, except that you cannot vote, di ba?
You cannot ask questions Yun ang naging rule nila. Like that's why
You can just make your statements kasi si
Congressman
Paolo,
Paolo,
Marcoleta.
Congressman, I think, Nazal, they can only make manifestations,
Yes.
or enter manifestations
So
in
they
the
cannot
record.
ask questions because they cannot be answered.
No, because that's in
They're
their-
not members of the
because you're not
committee.
members.
That's in their rule
Yeah.
Under the rules, only members of the committee may
Yeah.
examine or cross-examine.
So one of the highlights mentioned yesterday was VP Sara visiting Ramil Madriaga and former Congressman Arnie Teves in jail. So how much weight do you think this carry?
Well, that information came about yesterday. That's not true. The Vice President has always denied visiting Madriaga because by the mere fact that she does not know Ramil Madriaga personally, so we don't see any reason
So
why
why
she
are
would
they
visit
getting
him.
this, no? Na meron pa silang evidence na nagpunta
Let's
siya
be
doon?
fair, kasi nagsabi naman ng ating NBI director, kasi bago siyang director, no? And nagsabi naman po si Director Matibag that it's allegedly supported by documents. So we'd like to see the documents. We wouldn't want to comment on that now because si Secretary John Vic Remulla already mentioned, di ba, a few weeks, if not months ago, that it was actually Arnie Teves
That the Vice
that the
President
visited.
allegedly
Yeah.
Visited.
Yeah.
And so these things are supported by records. The warden is there. The lawyer of Arnie Teves was there. So tingnan na lang natin kung ano tong mga dokumento that he was pertaining to. Again, to at least be fair, may dokumento daw kasi. So, and
Yeah.
the defense is ready to confront these documents and even the witnesses.
Pero yung claim daw kasi is that si Madriaga dapat talaga ang pupuntahan, except that si Madriaga doesn't want to see the VP. That's the claim.
As far as we know, that's not true. But again, kung may documents, pakitaan natin. Kasi madaling mag-allege.
It's his word against
Madaling
the VP,
mag-allege.
right?
I think it's really, may records naman yan. Diba?
Yes,
Ang BJMP, may records naman yan. May warden naman dyan. Kasama naman ng warden pag bumibisita ka. So I guess these things, have to be produced. And on the part of the defense, we're very much confident we can confront these
Yung
documents.
visit kasi sa jail na yan, malaking bagay, no? As opposed to other things that Remil Madriaga is saying about his relationship with the Vice President, di ba? Kasi yung iba na mga pictures, etc., madali kasi yun eh. Kasi anybody, even any supporter of Sara, VP Sara, can have that selfies and photos and to be
Yes.
there anytime with her. Pero itong pag-visit sa jail, that's another story altogether. Kasi it would actually confirm somehow their relationship. Diba? That they know each other.
That's why we'd like to see the documents. Because as far as we know, and as far as, syempre, kinausap din namin ng client namin tungkol dyan. No? And she really does not know, and we stand by it, no, that she does not know Ramil Badriaga, has never worked with him on a personal, professional level. So, kung meron mang ganyang allegation, I think ang importante is makita natin yung ebidensya muna dyan.
Ang lakas ng loob niya, no? Kung gano'n.
Kasi like yung birthday greetings, I think we're all aware.
Yeah. In fact,
she does hundreds of those.
That's
you
true.
know,
Most of, some of our friends, even the PRRD, di ba?
Oo,
Si
meron
Senator
din siyang
Bongo,
ganun,
medyo
fan
nauso
sign.
yan eh. Nauso yan, lalo na ng pandemic. Yeah.
So, during the course of the proceedings yesterday, Congressman Benny Abante said to the effect that the VP Sara is not fit to be president. So what is the defense's reaction to this?
I don't want to address Congressman Abante directly because
Yes, of
I do
course,
know Congressman Abante and I do respect him as well. But I think let's leave it to the people kung yung mga comments na ganyan, is this still really impeachment or is it more of the 2028 presidency ang tinitingnan? But I will
always
leave it to
that,
the people. No? Of course, I have my personal opinions on the matter, but I don't think it's appropriate for me because nandito lang naman ako on the legal matters.
So, speaking of jail visits, Congresswoman Laila De Lima stated that to the effect that all Dutertes have violent tendencies, which is part of actually one of her manifestation after making clarificatory questions. This actually underscored for me, for those who are watching, that it seems that manifestations are being made independent of the clarificatory questions.
At ibalik din natin po sa ano ba talaga ang purpose nitong committee hearings. Hindi ba ang dapat na purpose nito is to determine if there's probable cause on the impeachable offenses. Meaning acts that were committed allegedly during the term of the Vice President. So if it goes beyond the acts of the Vice President and goes to her family, etc., I think that is way beyond the scope of the purpose of these proceedings.
Yeah, but that video was done when she was president. Yeah.
Vice President,
But
yes,
I mean,
yes.
when she was vice president.
What's important with that video is the context. No? I think that is something that was not really tackled yesterday, yung context. For example, the video, I think that's why Congressman Paulo Marcoleta said the word splice. No? And I actually personally don't want to use that word anymore because when I was in the hearing, medyo
naging issue yan.
medyo naging issue and meaning ko inaccurate naman siguro yung pagkasabi ko nung time na yun, splice. But with this particular video nung sinabing splice, it's because it went from one one segment of that press con to another na hindi napakita yung context kung bakit
Where
yun
she
ang
was
naging
coming from.
kung yun ang bakit naging yun ang sagot ng ating vice presidente. For example, there was also an insinuation na baka yung nakausap daw niya na tao ay yung security niya because ang sinasabi daw ay wag ka mag-alala ma'am, sa aking security may nakausap na ako. But that's misinterpretation because the question before there was a question of a reporter or a vlogger at that time, a vlogger, on the security of the vice president, meaning threats to the vice president's life, no, which they pertain to allegedly called Project Romanov. She was responding to that. That's why she said, "Huwag ka mag-alala sa security ko," meaning her security. Kasi nga may threat daw. So hindi tama yung ano, no, parang kinonek yung iba yung pagkabasa at sinabi na security niya yung kinausap niya. You know, it was really more of "Huwag ka mag-alala sa security ko." And then blah blah blah, may nakausap na ako, blah blah blah. So
you would know
I think
that
it's really
iba.
context dapat yung tinitingnan natin. We also have to look at the context of the situation prevailing at that time when that was made. No? Those statements were made.
With what transpired in the last two hearings, I think the 22nd and the 29th, does this affect the trajectory of your defense?
Not really. We of course, as you know, si Attorney Manscarpio already filed a case against
Yes,
yung disclosures ng AMLC. I'd like to clarify then, it's good that you brought
Yes,
that point up because yesterday I think it was mentioned that it was the defense team behind the case that were filed.
Of Attorney Mans?
Attorney Mans.
That is categorically untrue because may sariling legal team si Attorney Mans,
And he
it's
is a
unfair.
lawyer himself.
He is, and it would be unfair naman doon sa lawyers niya who worked on that complaint na i-attribute yun sa defense team. We're totally separate teams. We do not coordinate with each other. So iba yung kay Attorney Mans. But trajectories sa amin naman, we've always known. Sabi ko nga, hindi naman kami nagulat doon sa finding of probable cause yung naging botohan kahapon. So, we've always been prepared for this
You're
possibility.
one step, two steps ahead.
Trabaho namin yan
Yes.
diba? Trabaho natin yan. We always have to anticipate the worst, hope for the best, anticipate the worst. So, we're ready whatever happens sa plenary. I think aabangan pa rin natin yung plenary. We also don't want to preempt kung ano man yung maging boto sa plenary. Ayaw natin silang pangunahan.
And that forthwith
At least we finally put that issue to rest kasi it was, grabe nangyari na.
Were
May
you,
mga...
were you also expecting that?
The forthwith decision?
Yeah, the forthwith
no, to be
decision.
honest, we weren't expecting it to come out. In fact, nawala na siya kasi sa
Oo,
circulation.
kasi 19th Congress
But
yun,
I think it's good that finally, meron na tayong ruling from the Supreme Court kasi yan yung malaking debate last year. No?
The Vice President just issued a statement. Tama ba to? No, it was through Attorney Paul Lawrence Lim. Is he is he counsel for the Vice President?
Yes, for the DOJ case, no, yung
I
grave
see,
threats.
okay.
Yung grave threats. Kasi yung napag-uusapan kahapon na allegedly yung mga statements ng ating Vice Presidente, subject na yan kasi ng NBI complaint that was filed before the DOJ. In fact, we appeared there,
Yes.
I think, last year, mga May yata yun, 2025, we already appeared for preliminary investigation. So, as far as we know, this is already subject to the resolution of the DOJ panel of prosecutors. No?
Yeah. So
Subject to resolution pa lang eh. So that wasn't that a point during the course of the questions yesterday that the NBI admits that there are no resolutions yet to the investigation, the actual investigation into the ano ba yun? Grave threats ba
Grave
or
threats.
sedition?
There was a resolution. There's already a recommendation on the part of the NBI. In fact, they already came out with a complaint. You know,
Okay,
I think it's called an investigation affidavit or something like. I don't want to be inaccurate with that, but they already filed a complaint before the DOJ. And Attorney Paul Lim and I actually are counsels for that case. And so we already appeared before the DOJ panel of prosecutors. Kasi panel to hindi to yung simpleng fiscal. And so we already submitted all our counter affidavits. So ang sa pagkakaalam ko is under na siya, no? Doon na siya sa process of review and then resolution na dapat. Kaya nga kahapon, I think kasi iba-ibang theories yung lumalabas lately. Sinasabi na they're not looking at it as a conditional threat or something like that. Of course, I'll understand because Director Matibag is new, so baka iba yung direction na tinatahak. But again, the complaint was already filed, and under the complaint, it was very clear that they were considering it as a threat with a condition. So, nasagot na namin siya.
We'll be asking you your thoughts on the AMLC report,
Yes.
which is, if
not
the
a-
AMLC report is not a violation of data privacy and other related issues on this matter. But before I answer this, the spokes will return after this short break.
The spokes is back. Still with us is Attorney Michael Poa. Our hanging question earlier, Attorney, your thoughts that the AMLC report is not a violation of the data privacy?
Well, actually, iba kasi yung data privacy. Meron din kasi provision dun sa batas mismo
Yes.
ng AMLAC, no, which is yung Section 8A. I think yun yung contention din ni
Non-disclosure.
Attorney
Yeah,
Man Scarpio. So, I don't really want to get into that because there's already a case filed. But, you know, coming from at least my personal perspective, ang impeachment ay both political and legal. So, despite our objections, there is a need to inform the public at least no, on these things that are coming out.
Yes.
And that's why we're here to at least explain our side on yung pananaw namin dito sa mga AMLAC reports na ito. Oo.
So,
Yeah.
yesterday, former Commission on Audit Commissioner Heidi Mendoza was a guest at the spokes, and she raised the point that SALNs of the VP prior to becoming Vice President are crucial evidence of movement of net worth to identify possible fraud or ill-gotten wealth.
Well, again, let's go back to the definition of what an impeachable offense is. No? An impeachable offense or offense is committed while the impeachable officer is in office. And so we think that everything else that was outside her term as Vice President is irrelevant. And as we all
Correct,
know, pagdating sa evidence, I do not wish to be technical, but we
Yes,
just have to say this. Admissibility is relevance and competence. No? So relevance means it has to be relevant to an impeachable offense.
Must be related directly.
And competence is if it's allowed or not allowed by law. Hindi ba? So, sa atin, irrelevant na. But, you know, even then, that's why sabi nga namin, nung nag-press con kami last week, even then, may lumabas na AMLAC report, SALN
Yes,
issues. So, ina-address pa rin namin kahit na legally, we think all of these things are irrelevant to the impeachment proceedings. Ina-address pa rin namin para at least maliwanagan lang yung tao. No? So, yung SALN niya, the Vice President already issued a statement that she has faithfully declared all of her assets. Lahat ng alam niyang sa kanya, dineclare niya talaga faithfully yan throughout the years. And we don't see anything that will depart from that statement. Now, with the AMLAC, I think we've tried to explain this. Yung AMLAC reports, remember, they're on transactions. No?
Yes.
Transactions siya. Hindi yan
Inflow,
apples to
outflow.
apples. Meaning, transactions do not equate to net worth or even cash in bank. Hindi ba? So, kasi ang transactions is kung ano yung dumaan na pera, hindi ibig sabihin nun ay yun yung pera.
asset mo talaga.
Yun yung asset mo talaga. Second, if I may just expound on that, the AMLAC reports are aggregates, hindi ba? So there are a
Yes,
total of one's transactions, whether deposits, withdrawals, kaya nga may inflows, outflows, etc. And we're talking about a span of 19,
Yes,
18
almost 20
years,
years.
hindi ba?
Yes,
So kung
Na may mga negosyo rin
siguro,
siya.
mag-assess
She's
tayo.
also a
Tayo ba,
practicing
if
lawyer.
inad niya lahat ng if nag-add tayo ng lahat ng ating mga withdrawals, deposits, fund transfers, everything, hindi, kaya umaabot ng ganun kalaki. No? And
So yung non-declaration or misdeclaration of entries in the SALN, it's enough to determine the probable cause. Diba? That's,
they were trying to tie,
That's what they're trying
tie
to
it
say,
up
yeah.
kasi with ill-gotten wealth. I think that was really the
Yes.
purpose there. Kasi yung SALN naman, pag pwede ka naman mag-amend ng SALN, that's provided under the law. Basta in good faith ka, no? na may hindi ka nalagay or may hindi ka alam, tapos bigla mo na lang nalaman, hindi mo nalagay sa SALN mo, you can always amend your SALN. But I think they were trying to tie it up with ill-gotten wealth. But again, these AMLAC reports, that's why we always say we have to be cautious because you cannot come up with conclusions with that. Siguro, para lang simplihan natin, no? Nabanggit ko dati na if you have like, let's say 10,000 pesos na lang and you deposited that in your account, that's an inflow, hindi ba? And then, nag-invest ka sa time deposit. Nag-outflow yan sa account mo, pumasok yan sa isang time deposit account. Kumita ka ng konti, bumalik yan. So now, how many inflows, outflows do you have? But actually, the money is really started with 10,000 and maybe a little bit of interest yung natira. Pangalawa, what if, kunyari tayong mga abogado, when we assist our clients, hindi ba pag may filing fees, minsan nasasabihin ng kliyente, attorney, i-transfer ko sa yung filing fees.
Correct.
So, meron ka ngayong inflow na maaring malaki pag civil case, di ba? Na malaki
Pero
yung
may
claim.
mga fees din kasi. that
Oo,
you
may
have
fees.
to pay.
And then, lalabas yan sa account mo kasi ibabayad. Dumaan lang yan eh. Ibabayaran mo yan. So, that's not really...
Yeah, and the 2 billion is an aggregate of the total of 19 years.
19 years. That's why we're saying, again, sa atin, sinasabi nga namin, hindi namin sinasabing tama o mali yung mga numbers. What we're saying is, kailangan cautious tayo dito kasi hindi conclusive yung ganitong nilalabas
Sorry,
na
it's
mga numero.
6.7 billion pala to be exact.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
I think
For
between
19 years.
Yeah,
the
for
Vice
19
President
years.
and
That's
her
why they're
husband.
saying it's a huge amount.
There's no claim, I think, to the accuracy of that number.
Oo.
Even the congressman cannot say that with any significant accuracy. that
Again,
6
it
billion
should be
is
based
at
on the
best
evidence. No?
guesswork.
Where did they get that 6.7 billion number?
But according to former Commissioner Heidi Mendoza, she has this theory called gross truth versus net balance. So ang sinasabi niya is that what is important is to look at the movement of money, not the net balance, but because in and out can mask certain transactions like money laundering. In particular, especially money laundering because this is AMLAC we're talking about. So if, for instance, pumasok yung pera, significant amount, and then it also goes out in a suspiciously short period of time, that might be considered as money laundering.
We'll have to, money laundering, una, that there has to be an investigation talaga on these things. And perhaps...
predicate crime.
And predicate crimes. And sa atin, ang sinasabi nga natin sa ngayon, na hindi natin alam kung ano yung mga accounts na nasama doon. Secondly, we're only talking about covered and suspicious transactions that go to AMLAC. In fact, if you see, may mga 1 peso, di ba, na sinasabi nila suspicious transaction. I can understand why the banks reported that. But that's because, di ba, maraming nagtatry magpasok
To
siguro
see
nung...
if the account is
yung
real.
alleged joint account. Yung
yeah.
alleged joint account. So, all these things, I think, right now, we're very cautious with really going into the details. We'll have to really test the evidence. And perhaps, again, if this goes to trial, maybe...
So you think all of this can be discussed at the Senate trial?
We don't know eh. In fact,
Kasi ang daming- we're talking about a lot of evidences
Siyempre,
that
ang
has to be
posisyon namin
unfolded
sa
here.
ngayon, with the way the proceedings were conducted, with the way the evidence, the pieces of evidence were obtained, maybe in the appreciation of the congressmen in plenary, baka naman makita nila na hindi na dapat tong mag-progress. No? But again, if this goes to trial, the defense is ready to confront all of these things. Siyempre, pinag-aaralan namin lahat ng mga AMLAC reports na yan.
Yeah, I was watching yesterday the interview of Congresswoman Luistro, the chairman of the committee, and she was saying that they have already prepared the committee report and it has to be distributed to all the congressmen so that they will have enough time to read. Hopefully, they will really read all of this committee
Parang requirement
report.
yata yun in the Duterte versus
process.
HOR
The
case.
due process. And we really hope that they can really read all of this because on May 4, then during the next hearing in the plenary, then they will already make that vote.
To be honest, hindi ako, maybe that's the question is best directed to them because I actually don't know ano talaga yung schedule. Is it May 4? Ito-plenary na baka agad? Kasi alam ko there's a committee hearing on May 4, perhaps for the committee to agree on what's stated in the committee report and to approve such. But I don't know, and of course the articles of impeachment that they will be recommending. No? But I don't know when, if they plan to submit it to plenary for discussion that afternoon or hindi ko kasi alam yung schedule nila talaga.
So, yung comment nyo kay Ms. Heidi Mendoza's statement that yung cash in bank should not be put in others because cash is a liquid asset and others may be properties or jewelries.
Well, ang aming pananaw dyan, of course, with due respect to Ma'am Heidi, kasi, I mean, she's been in government also for quite some time, but at least on the legal side, ang ano namin dyan is wala namang, ang pananaw namin is wala namang prohibition pagdating sa pag-group nito, o paglalump nito sa others. But at the end of the day, perhaps yesterday, I think Congressman Terry Don already requested for at least some resolution or opinion from the CSC kung ano ba tama dito. So we'll await that. But ang pananaw kasi namin is wala namang nagbabawal kung yun ang gagawin mo. And kasi kung makikita
Kung
mo,
wala namang
nakalump,
intention,
yes, pero walang concealment kasi nandun yung amount. No? So yun ang
Correct,
importante dun sa SALN is you do not conceal wealth. That's why, diba?
Yeah.
So,
And
So,
it can
pwede
be
ka nam-
amended.
Yeah.
and
The
it can
law
be
allows
amended
for
for
amendments.
as long as there's no bad faith. So,
And if she will be asked, then she can give the breakdown probably, di ba, of what the others are.
that's a possibility, of course. But again, yun nga kung titingnan mo ang ating Vice Presidente, wala naman siyang ginawang any form of concealment. I understand the debate on whether it can be lumped into others or not. I do understand that debate. And we also understand probably the other side, yung mga adverse position natin. But at the end of the day, we'd like to emphasize there's no concealment kasi nandun naman yung amount. Wala siyang tinagong yaman.
Baka masyado lang maraming items din yun na hindi yan na isa-isa. No?
Are you expecting a forensic audit dun sa mga SALN ni VP?
We're always ready for that. We're always ready for that possibility. Lahat ina-anticipate natin, lalo na na kahit yung detail and yung pagiging masusi pagdating sa impeachment trial. But even kami on our side, we're also going to be very the Filipino terms masusi, no? Pagdating dito
Ilan
sa
ba talaga kayong
mga
lawyers,
ebidensya.
attorney?
There's always a misconception because we say it's 16 lawyers, so
Yun
parang
nga
ang
eh,
dami-dami.
oo,
But
sobrang
it's really
dami.
kasi we're working with firms. No? There are 3 firms actually. My firm, but I'm the one that's in the team. Yung firm ni Attorney Bodota.
Yes,
And of course, for Tu Narvasan Salazar, as the lead firm that's actually working here in this
So
defense team.
technically,
That's why
parang
kaya
tatlo
naging
lang
16
or
kasi alam niyo
apat,
naman sa
oo.
firm may mga associates,
You,
'di ba?
you
And-
include
and-
the associates
so kaya
and
included sila.
partners. If the prosecution team solicits the assistance of Commissioner Mendoza to do a forensic audit of VP Sara Salens, do you think that you would be opposing her
Right now, I
expertise,
cannot. We haven't discussed that in the defense team, so I don't want to commit. But then I think they're free to get whoever expert witnesses they can get, and it's for us to confront, diba? During cross-examination.
Yeah, you don't have any control of that.
Oh, we don't have any control. They have the right to get their expert witnesses. We have the right to get our expert witnesses, and then I think you'll see everything unfold during trial, whether through our presentation or through our cross-examination of their witnesses.
So is the evidence team banking on reports that the Senate does not have the number to convict VP Sara?
As you know, it's always political. We're not banking on that because as everything goes in politics, things change so quickly, hindi ba?
Yes,
So the part of the defense team, we're more focused on what we will be presenting as our defense to the Vice President, how we will cross-examine the witnesses to be presented by the prosecution. So dun lang muna kami. We don't really want to dwell on the politics. And at the end of the day, all we can hope for is that the senators will vote based on the evidence that's on the table.
Yeah, because again, you don't have any control of that, no? So yung last year, this is already one of the part of the show of we call tough questions. No? So last year, 215 congressmen voted in the plenary to impeach VP Sara. If the numbers is less or more than for this year's impeachment, would this matter to the defense?
Sa defense, wala. Because again, sa defense, basta umabot sila ng 106, aabot na tayo ng transmittal to the Senate and trial.
One-third, no?
So maybe politically, maybe optics-wise, but sa akin, that's secondary na. Sa amin, we're just focused really on what to present in the Senate kung sakaling mangyari yan. But again, we're hoping pa rin na makita nila yung mga objections din namin doon sa naging proceedings, doon sa kailan ba kinuha yung ebidensya, paano ba nakalap yung mga ebidensya na sa pananaw namin ay hindi naman naka-attach doon sa original complaints, diba? Was there an improvement of these complaints? So, yan yung mga bagay na sana ay busisiin rin ng ating mga kagalang-galang na mambabatas once it goes to plenary.
Yung remaining congressmen that are not members of the committee, kasi given na yung sa committee, unanimous na sila. Yeah, so,
Oo, sila. Yung the remaining, yes, of course.
So, do you see the possibility of the Dutertes aligned senators facing corruption issues, voting to convict VP Sara in exchange for getting of their respective votes or cases?
I don't want to speculate.
Yeah.
And also, again, let's give the senators the benefit of the doubt. I mean, we believe they were all elected to office. They all have integrity. So I'm appealing, and I'm sure, actually, I don't need to appeal. I'm sure that they will vote based on what's on the table, meaning the evidence presented.
So we see the vice presidents going around doing the usual vice presidential things. How do you think? Do you think she's very confident of her case?
Well, for one, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Yesterday, medyo naging bring up din siya na issue, no? But hindi naman porket may impeachment proceeding, titigil ang trabaho ng Vice Presidente. And as I've always said, the President is always, the Vice President is always business as usual. Kahit may ganitong binabato sa kanya, gusto niyang ituloy yung trabaho niya bilang Vice Presidente, which is her mandate.
Yeah, she's still the Vice President after all.
And now, based on our conversations, I wouldn't say na this has affected her enough to make her stop, doing her mandate. And because the Vice President has always maintained na itong mga paninira sa kanya, matagal na to 2023 pa lang. So siya, gagawin lang niya yung trabaho niya sa Office of the Vice
She
President.
has to remain professional. She's still elected Vice President, and we're expecting that from her. No? So what will be her recourse if she is convicted during the impeachment trial in the Senate? This is our last tough question.
Too far away to determine, but sa amin, syempre, we're not here for that result. Sabi ko nga the other day, we're not here to lose. The defense team was formed not just to win, no? The winning is minor, but it's really to show the people na walang basehan itong mga aligasyon na binabato nila at paninira nila sa ating
And
Vice
I think
President.
yun ang pinaka-importante, no, na maipaliwanag talaga sa mga tao, both sides, so that let the people decide.
Yes.
So thank you so much, Attorney Mike, po again.
Thank you, Ma'am Relly. And of
Huwag
course,
kayong
Attorney
magsasawa
Mixie.
sa discourse.
Oo naman. Really enjoy our conversation.
Thank
So
you
thank
so
you for
much.
having us.
And
And
good
we're
luck.
expecting you back soon. Nagreserba ka agad In a unanimous vote, rising pressure and questions that keep coming.
The defense speaks of law and procedure, but in the end, public trust will deliver the final verdict. I'm former Secretary Relly Fajardo.
And former Press Secretary Attorney Trixie Cruz Angeles.
And we are the spokes.